Hey everyone, this is Tony D with another screenwriting tip, and today we're going to talk about how to make unlikable characters basically likable or tolerable in your screenplays. So, if you have an unlikable character, like a grumpy old man kind of guy, right? Maybe he's the main character, maybe he's not, but you need the audience to identify with him or like him in some way or be on his side. But he has to be kind of an unlikable guy. Well, one way, the quickest way to make any character likable in any screenplay is to give him a pet. Give him a cute dog, give him a cute cat, and any kind of cute pet, and that they love the pet and they take care of them, and that's a quick way to have the audience go, oh, he has a doggy. See, that's why I have a doggy. I'm an unlikable character, and everybody likes me because of Joan. But if you don't have that for whatever reason, maybe it's not the kind of screenplay where a pet is appropriate for this character. You have to think up of ways that the character is unlikable, in the general sense, as in the audience recognizes him as a guy they wouldn't want to hang out with, but he's not a bad guy, so to speak, right? So, typical sort of unlikable character, but that people like, would be, say, like a dad character or a grandpa character who is a bit of kind of a curmudgeon, kind of doesn't like people, kind of gripes all the time, but gives good advice, right? Or in the end comes through for his family, even though he doesn't want any credit and he doesn't want to do anything nice or be acknowledged for being nice. He just likes to be grumpy because that's kind of his thing, right? There are people like that. They like to live, F you, piss off. That kind of character, but deep down he's kind of a sweetheart, but he doesn't want anybody to know for whatever reason. Um, it's a fine line between characters who are very likable, but audiences kind of hate because they're too likable. Because they're not relatable enough. Usually because you can't connect with them, and I think that's often the result of the writer or director falling in love with the character, or sometimes even the actor turning the character into a Mary Sue. I think that's partly the result of what happened to Star Wars, right? Rey is Mary Sue. She's too much. In this case, I think the producers were so in love with the concept of a female Star Wars, it blinded them to the basic story elements that would have made a character like that totally viable. I mean, it would have been very easy to rewrite the 3 Star Wars movies in such a way that Rey was an awesome character that comes through in the end and becomes the greatest Jedi in the universe. But they didn't do that. And I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. And we're not talking about likable characters that are too likable, so likable that they're hated. We're talking about unlikable characters that we can't hate. So it is possible to turn off an audience to the point where, even though you want people to kind of like the character, there's certain lines you don't want to cross. Okay. Again, animals. If you're mean to an animal, chances are that's a really tough line to come back from. If a curmudgeon kicks a dog, man, whoa, it's going to be really tough to sell to the audience that really he's an okay guy, even though he kicked a tiny animal. If he does something truly mean and awful, something that is so despicable, like murder. That's a tough one to come back from, unless the character, was completely justified in the murder, either for self-defense or to save someone else. it's almost impossible to bring that character sort of back from the brink and say, well, he's really a good guy. He just made a mistake. It's tough. They do it in dramas. I mean, it is possible to do in dramas. There's ways, a lot of it is the time. If you have a lot of time. If you watch a movie like, great movie, by the way, can't recommend it enough, James Gandolfini's last movie, The Drop, with Tom Hardy. And there's a murder at the end that, man, it just holds so much weight. And the end scene of that movie is phenomenal. Phenomenal. You really should watch that movie. It's a great, and there are unlikable characters in that, right? Typically in a mafia movie, and that's a mafia movie, you have characters who are gangsters. They kill people, they hurt people, but they're always presented in such a way that you kind of like them up to a point, right? You kind of like, the characters in The Godfather, let's say, James Caan's character in The Godfather, Sonny, because he's just so out of control, right? So sometimes his antics are kind of funny in that it's so over the top. He's so boisterous and loud, and he is clearly, if he wasn't in a mobster family, if he was just in a normal family, he'd be the loud family member that needles people and causes all sorts of trouble at the family table, but at the end of the day, he's okay. Obviously, in a gangster sort of situation, in a mafia family, it's a little different. But you can, as you're watching the mob movies, you're a lot of times their actions are justified at least by the code that they live with. So that's some mitigation for the audience. They could say, well, and then the fact that they're watching a mobster movie, they're going to obviously come in there and say, well, I'm watching a mobster movie. No one's really a good guy, really. You look at Casino. Joe Pesci's character, was it Casino or Goodfellas? I guess it was Goodfellas. Joe Pesci's character, I mean, he's off the rails. He's a complete, utter psychopath. But then the other characters in Goodfellas, it would be Ray Liotta. He does some stuff too, but he's not Joe Pesci's character. He's not a psychopath. He doesn't just kill people just to get a rise out of you. So there are varying degrees, and it's not just with criminals. You do that with alien characters, right? With sci-fi, it's often appearance, right? So a scary-looking alien might signal to the audience, oh, God, this guy's going to kill everybody, and then it turns out he's a nice guy. So that's another way where it's kind of an unlikable character, maybe because he's so scary, or maybe because his alien race has such a deadly reputation, like the Klingons on Star Trek, right? You grew to like some of them eventually. A guy like Worf is the exception, but there were other Klingon characters who became fun characters over the years because they softened them a bit. But they were still Klingons. They still killed people. They still, war, hooray. So, they are inherently unlikable. You wouldn't want to invite a Klingon to your house and hang out with him, but because he'd probably call you a wimp and push you around and maybe challenge you to a battle and then get drunk and smash up your place. But they're kind of likable watching it from the outside, right? As a moviegoer, they're likable because you're not really experiencing him in the flesh, And that's another tool too. You have to remember that even though you have an obnoxious character, if he's funny, the audience is laughing partly because they don't have to deal with that funny character, like like Rick from Rick and Morty. Rick is very much a curmudgeon, and he's kind of a tough guy to deal with. he's got a lot of baggage. You invite him over. Next thing you know, aliens are showing up, and all kinds of crazy things are happening. People die around him. He is not necessarily a guy, if he existed in real life, you would want to hang out with. But he's great to watch on a TV show because, all the crazy things that happen to him, he is as good as he can be. In a film noir script, same thing. You have very unlikable characters, but then your protagonist is usually the least of the characters that are disliked, right? He's the best of a group of rogues, let's say, or a heist movie. A lot of time, a heist movie, it'll be a bunch of people who are basically robbing people and sometimes killing people, but certain of those thieves are the protagonist or the good guys. So you root for them because they have, another thing is family members. Sort of like pets, only more important. They're in that category, though, of people that they need to protect, So the easiest way in a heist movie is to have, one of the thieves, he's got a daughter, and the only reason he's doing this heist is for her, because they're so poor, and if he doesn't pull off this heist, he won't have enough money for the operation. And, even though he's doing, illegal and maybe terrible things for her. You also can make the people around them so bad and evil. So, for instance, if you're robbing somebody, the quickest way to make the thieves more sympathetic is to make the guy that they're robbing less sympathetic. Make him a total hedge fund manager that screwed everybody and stole their money and foreclosed on little old ladies, and then nobody feels sorry for them, and they actually start rooting for the thieves because, well, at least they're not as bad as that guy they're going to rob. He deserves to be robbed. So it's all about what you deserve in the world of movies. Now, that doesn't necessarily comport with reality. It's movie reality, but movie reality runs 90 minutes at a clip. So keep that in mind. It's a shorthand for actual reality. Yeah, in reality, thieves are bad people. They go to jail, they go to prison, they get caught up in a life that's unsustainable. Most of them are not nice people. But that's not what you're doing in a movie. You're making a movie reality. And as long as that reality is consistent within that 90 minutes, you should be fine. As long as your protagonist is ultimately likable. He could be designed to be an unlikable character. Maybe he's just unliked by everybody else in the movie, but you like him. That's fine. As long as the audience is on the side of your protagonist, you really can't go wrong.